Okay, so let's keep going. We're making our way through the Michael Pollan. I think it's going really well. Um, okay, cool. Um, so he's pointing out that a lot of the culture tells people when you grow up in something normal, it's just you don't think about it. You eat meat. In the old days, there used to be a handful of people who were against it, but now more people are starting to ask themselves the same questions that the handful of vegetarians from many years ago were asking, which is about, is it okay to eat animals? And if it is, why? Why is it okay to kill something for food when you could just eat plants? Because you're putting cruelty into the world when you harm an animal. So what is the reason? Right. So Poland continues, in recent years, medical researchers have raised questions about um, the good to eat part, while philosophers like Singer and organizations like People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals have given us new reasons to doubt meat is good to think, that is good for our souls or moral self-regard. Um, okay, so actually to go back up to this sentence, our culture has been telling us for millennia that animals were good to eat, uh, we're both good to eat and good to think. Meaning, people, I understand that sentence now. It took me a second. Good to eat means good for you, good for your body. It's healthy to eat meat, people have said. But also, they've said it's okay for your soul to eat meat. It doesn't, you're not doing anything morally or ethically wrong. So in the next paragraph, he points out that some people might object. Right, this is the part of your papers. So just like I tell you to always in your papers have a paragraph that begins, some people might object. So he says, listen, most American culture has been telling people for a long time that meat is good for you, and also it's good to think about. It doesn't harm your soul to be killing, or your psyche or your mind to be sort of killing animals. Um, but then he says some people object to that. And so the next paragraph is objections. So he says, in recent years, medical researchers have raised questions about the good to eat part, while philosophers like Singer and organizations like People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, PETA, have given us, and you remember PETA, Dave Foster Wallace talked about this animal rights group. They've given us new reasons to doubt meat is good to think, that is good for our souls or our moral self-regard. Hunting is in particularly bad odor these days, even among people who still eat meat, meaning a lot of folks, even though the only way to get meat is by hunting, a lot of people that enjoy meat don't want to hang out with hunters, because we have separated society into sections. You guys know the Hunger Games. District 1 is so different from District 13 or 12 or whatever Katniss is from. Um, and in the same way, like when you eat food in a New York City restaurant, most people in New York City eat all kinds of food from all kinds of places, and they don't know any hunters. And if they did, they'd be like, "Oh, hunters! I don't want to hang out with that guy. That guy kills animals for a living." Like, you mean he kills the animals that you eat? So a lot of people can be kind of snobby. They don't really want to think about hunting and hunters. Oh, that's he just shoots animals. That can't be good for your soul, dude. You're the one eating the meat. How's that for your soul? Um, See, the reason the hunter kills is because you're buying the stuff, but we divorce it, right? It's very different. If you are a hunter and you eat your own meat, you're doing both parts. But for a lot of people in New York, they eat the meat, they don't do the hunting, and they don't know anybody who does. I don't know any hunters. I just don't know any. In New York, you don't run into when you go to party in New York City and you say, what do you do for a living? People go, oh, I'm a computer programmer, I'm a graphic designer, I do advertisement for pharmaceutical companies, I'm an artist. Nobody ever says, oh, I'm a hunter. I hunt animals for a living, kill them, just shoot them right in the head and cut them up in little bits, hang them out, let the blood drain out of the neck, and nobody does that. Um, a friend of mine, her neighbor is a hunter, and something went wrong. He got like stuck out of town, and he had a deer hung up like in a shed that was dripping, draining blood out of it, and she had to go kind of do part of that process for him. It was very disturbing. Again, she eats meat, but most people who eat meat in New York don't interact with hunters or even animals. I mean, there's no fucking cows wandering around New York City. There's no pigs here. All right, let's take a look what we got. Um, Hunting is particularly bad odor. Bad odor means like people don't like it. It smells. It doesn't literally smell bad. It's a metaphor. Hunting is in particularly bad odor these days, even among people who still eat meat. Apparently, it's the fact of killing people most object to, as if steak should be gotten any other way, right? So people are like, "Ooh, that guy kills animals. That's bad." But like, how else are you going to get a steak? You got to kill things for steak. That's how it works. Or perhaps it's the taking pleasure in killing an animal that is the trouble, right? This is a tricky notion because if you do something, after a while you get good at it. And when you're good at doing something, you start to enjoy it, and that's great. If you have a job like being a painter, you're good at being a painter, and when you start off, you're not so good at painting, it's frustrating, and then you become a very good painter, and then you start to enjoy it. Fantastic. But what if the thing you're good at is hunting? And then you start to enjoy it. You're enjoying killing animals? This is something that troubles people. If you enjoy killing, then this is something that makes people go, ooh, I don't know about that guy. But anybody who does any job, you do something long enough, you're going to get good at it. You're good at something, you're going to enjoy it because it's satisfying to be good at something. One of my favorite TV shows, actually, it's not a very good show, but it has a line that I like. He says, life is barely long enough to get good at one thing. So be careful what it is. It's a good point. It takes your whole life to get good at one thing. So be careful what it is. I spent my whole life getting good at talking about books. I'm pretty happy with that decision. But if you spend your whole life, say, getting really good at killing things, I don't know. I don't know how that would be. Maybe you'd be like, you'd enjoy it. Maybe that'd be fine for you. I have no idea. I'm not a hunter. I really don't know. But what if you spend your whole life making money for other people, and you get really good at it, and then you enjoy it, and then you're just like enjoying sending money up to your bosses? That's crazy. Um, Wall Street guys spend their whole lives getting good at Wall Street. Wall Street is gambling. Stock markets is gambling. They gamble on companies, and if they do well, they make money, and if they don't do well, they lose money, or depending on what bets they placed. But like, if you spend your whole life being good at gambling, what kind of person are you? Is that a person you want to be? Maybe. I don't know. Could be fun. Could be cool. I don't think it is though. All right, let's go back into this. Okay. It may be that as civilization, we're groping, meaning reaching in like we're not doing a very good job reaching, but we're trying to reach. It may be that as a civilization, we're groping toward a higher plane of consciousness, right? We're trying to be better human beings, but we're not doing a very good job at it. It may be that our moral enlightenment has advanced to the point where the practice of eating animals, like out former practices of keeping slaves or treating women as inferior beings, um, can now this should be B, can now be seen for the barbarity it is, a relic of an ignorant past that very soon will fill us with shame. I'm going to read that sentence again because I think it's important. It may be that as a civilization we're groping toward a higher plane of consciousness. It may be that our moral enlightenment has advanced to the point where the practice of eating animals, like this is a typo, like our former practices of keeping slaves or treating women as inferior beings, can now be seen for the barbarity it is, a relic of an ignorant past that very soon will fill us with shame. So he points out maybe the issue is that human beings, the longer human civilization survives, he thinks maybe we're getting morally better. For example, he has some examples. By the way, I am not at all sure that people are morally better today than they used to be, but this is not the time to talk about that. The point is that he says, what if people today? His opinion is that maybe people today are getting morally better. For example, in the past, a whole lot of people thought it was okay to keep human slaves as property. Now, very few people think that. A long time ago, people used to treat women like property. Now, very few people think women are property. And he says maybe the reason people are talking more and more about vegetarianism is that it's the same kind of thing. It's that owning human beings as property, treating women like possessions, and eating animals are three things that they did in the old days that now we're starting to feel like maybe these are things terrible people do, right? Maybe these are what barbarians do and terrible human beings. Then if you want to be a good person, you should not have any human slaves, not treat women like objects, and also not kill animals for what fundamentally boils down to enjoyment. That's his claim. Now, I'm not really sure we're better morally than we used to be. I mean, we invented the nuclear bomb. That seems to me we're a lot worse than we used to be, but that's me. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.